Hey listeners, this is Peter, and welcome back to the History Shorts podcast. This humble show is brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the globe, including this one, and all in one place. Download Podcast Republic now, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts. They began as Viking raiders, outsiders on the fringes of Europe. But within a few generations, they would conquer kingdoms, reshape Christianity, and redefine medieval warfare. They were the Normans, and their story is one of ambition, adaptability, and empire.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
The word Norman comes from Northmen, the name given to Scandinavian raiders who descended on the coasts of France in the 9th century. For decades, Viking longships had terrorized Western Europe, striking monasteries, ports, and river towns with ruthless efficiency. But one band of Norse warriors, led by a chieftain named Rollo, decided to settle rather than raid. In 911 AD, after years of attacks on the Seine Valley, Rollo struck a remarkable deal with the French king Charles the Simple. Under the Treaty of Saint-Clair-sur-Epte, Rollo and his men were granted lands along the lower Seine in exchange for two things: their conversion to Christianity and their promise to defend the region from other Viking raids. That land would become Normandy, the land of the Northmen. And from it would rise one of the most transformative peoples in all of European history. What made the Normans so extraordinary was their ability to adapt. Within a generation, they had abandoned their pagan roots, adopted the French language, and integrated into feudal system of Western Europe. They married local nobles, learned new technologies, and absorbed the customs of the land that they had once raided. But they didn't lose their warrior edge. The Normans fused Viking ferocity with Frankish discipline, producing knights who were both aggressive and organized, fierce and strategic. Their cavalry tactics, fortified castles, and disciplined feudal armies became models for medieval Europe. By the 11th century, the descendants of those Viking settlers had become a hybrid culture, part Norse, part Frankish, and entirely unstoppable. The Normans' most famous achievement began with a claim and a cross-channel invasion that changed the course of history. In 1066, Duke William of Normandy, known to his enemies as William the Bastard, claimed that his distant cousin Edward the Confessor, King of England, had promised him the English throne. When Edward died childless, the crown instead went to Harold Godwinson, an English noble. William refused to accept that. With the backing of the Pope, Norman knights, and a fleet of ships, he crossed the English Channel and met Harold's army at the Battle of Hastings. The clash on October 14, 1066, was brutal. The English shield wall held firm until a faint Norman retreat broke their ranks. Then, a Norman arrow, perhaps fired by chance, struck Harold in the eye. By the day's end, Harold was dead and William stood victorious. He was thus crowned William the First of England. We today know him better as William the Conqueror. William's conquest didn't just replace a king, it remade an entire nation. He imposed Norman feudalism, dividing England's lands among loyal knights and barons. He ordered the construction of castles across the country, from the Tower of London to hundreds of stone fortresses that symbolized Norman authority. He introduced French as the language of power, reshaping English law, art, and architecture. The Domesday Book, completed in 1086, cataloged every acre of land, every livestock head, every tax obligation, a feat of administration unparalleled in medieval Europe. The Normans didn't just conquer England, they rebuilt it. Their influence merged with Anglo-Saxon traditions, creating the foundation of modern English governance, language, and law. And they didn't stop there. While William was reshaping England, other Norman adventurers were transforming the Mediterranean. Bands of Norman mercenaries had begun arriving in southern Italy as early as 1010s, selling their services to local lords and Byzantine rulers. Among them were the Hauteville brothers, warriors from Normandy who carved out their own dominions by conquest. Robert Guiscard, one of the most audacious of them all, defeated Byzantine forces and seized control of southern Italy. His brother, Roger I, went further still, conquering Sicily from its Muslim rulers by 1091. These Norman adventurers blended cultures, Latin, Greek, and Arabic, and turned Sicily into one of medieval Europe's most cosmopolitan kingdoms. By mid-12th century, under Roger II, the Kingdom of Sicily had become a dazzling center of trade, science, and art, a place where Christian, Muslim, and Jewish scholars worked side by side. The same Norman adaptability that transformed France and England now shaped the Mediterranean. When Pope Urban II called the First Crusade in 1095, the Normans were among its fiercest champions. Their descendants marched east and established powerful crusader states. In 1098, Bohemond captured Antioch, one of the great cities of the Near East. Norman castles rose around the region, symbols of their enduring military genius and relentless ambition. They were in every sense the shock troops of Christendom, uniting piety with conquest. By the 12th century, Norman power stretched from the North Sea to the Mediterranean, from England and Ireland to Sicily and Antioch, and the Middle East. But more lasting than their territories was their legacy. The Normans transformed Europe in three essential ways: feudalism and military innovation, in which they perfected the knightly system, mounted warriors bound by loyalty and land. Their castles and tactics became blueprints for medieval warfare. There's also the cultural synthesis. They didn't just conquer, they absorbed. From the Latin West to the Arabic South, the Normans blended languages, religions, and technologies, leaving behind hybrid societies of remarkable sophistication. And lastly, administrative vision. Whether in England or Sicily, Norman rulers built systems of governance that combined efficiency with surveillance, early prototypes of centralized statehood that prefigured modern bureaucracies. By the late 12th century, the Normans, as a distinct people, however, began to dissolve, absorbed into the cultures that they had transformed. In England, they became Anglo-Normans. In Sicily, they intermarried with Lombards, Greeks, and Arabs. In Normandy itself, their descendants became part of the fabric of France, but their spirit, bold, pragmatic, and audacious, endured. They turned conquest into culture and warfare into statecraft. The world that they created, of knights, castles, cathedrals, and kings, became the Europe that we recognize today. Hopefully, today's episode has inspired you to seek out and learn more about this subject. For answers to questions, sources for today's episode, to leave a comment, or check out upcoming guest announcements, visit www.historyshortspodcast.com or look for History Shorts Podcast on Facebook, X, or Patreon. Stay curious, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.